For those who made it on time, we're getting started with our seventh resource session. And for the rest on the recording, who listen to it probably later on, welcome whenever you do join us or listen into this recording. So good evening and very, very warm welcome to what I was saying is our seventh resource session. For a few of you who may not know me here, my name is Amrita Singh, and I'm the founder of Back to Source Coaching, which is a firm that's dedicated to support the evolution of individuals and organizations, and the modality that we use is coaching. So there's something really meaningful about today's conversation because it's the seventh of our last session of what I call as the first season of the resource sessions. And it began around 18 months ago, where we, as a collective, Soulful Organizations is the collective that we go by. And we decided that we want to bring into the world something that's really close to our hearts, this idea of building soulful organizations. Hey, Laurie, so good to have you here. And at the heart of it is really simple. The initiative is really simple. It's just this belief that organizations can come alive only when individuals within them come alive. And that's really what we're working towards as a collective. So, across these seven conversations that we've had so far, we've explored many different dimensions of leadership, from love and leadership to uh, coaching and personal transformation to consciousness, and everything has, like I said, had just one question underlying it all: is what would become possible if people were able to access, express, and harness their full potential. And therefore, to close this first season of resource sessions, it couldn't have been anyone better than our spiritual partner, Mark Vandeneijnde, for to lead us through what we call as the topic for today is human potential house as a roadmap. And what I love about the generosity of Mark's heart is that he has made this assessment open. It's like open source. Anybody from anywhere around the world can take this assessment. And that was the invitation that we made to each one of you who've joined. And everyone, we just share it with, take the assessment, and you receive a really detailed report, which you can read and access yourself. But of course, the joy and the beauty and the depth of it is revealed when you make the time to connect with a human potential coach and go through a debrief of that session. And what I love about this assessment is that it's not something that puts you into a box like many of the assessments are used to. And that's why I love this assessment a lot. It's really about supporting you to see your life, like a snapshot of your life is where it stands today. So I say that it acts like a map as well as a mirror, and it's not static. It's representative of where we are today. And that's what makes this assessment specially dear to me. I'll share a little personal story is that I take this assessment every year as a gift to myself on my birthday. Somewhere around my birthday, I take this assessment, and it helps me see how I've grown and what this new year really awaits as I step into a new year of life, but also how I can bring more of myself into this world. And this assessment serves both as that map and mirror for me. So I'm not going to spend more time on any of this uh, introduction to it, but really get us involved and integrated and move forward to understand more about this little assessment. I'm sure each one of you have taken it. Just give me a thumbs up if you've already taken it. Awesome. Already have your report in. Great. It's a beautiful, colorful report. And it's in English, so you can read it, of course, and make sense of it. But today we're going to go into a little bit more depth into understanding about it, understanding how it started. And with that, I'm going to invite Mark in, who, like I said, dear friend, spiritual partner. to begin this conversation. And the way that we're going to structure this is that I'll ask Mark a few questions. He's going to share a little bit about himself, about the work that he's brought into this world, and how it is here in service of the rising of consciousness of all. And then we will get into a coaching demonstration where Sai, Sailaja Manacha, I like to call her, and she likes to be called as Sai, and that's where I went to first, has volunteered to be uh, um, coached by Mark in today's session. So after you took the assessment, Mark sent out a mail to everybody, and it was literally fastest finger first. And I was so excited that Sai was the one who stepped in. And Mark is going to coach Sai. And as he coaches Sai through the assessment, I'm sure each one of you will glean a deeper understanding of the report for yourself, even though he's really coaching Sai. And of course, we're all here. So if any of you would like a deeper dive and understanding, just feel free to reach out. And there are many human potential coaches on this call who will definitely be more than willing to make time to debrief for any one of you and help you with a developmental journey if that is what you're interested in. So without any further ado, let's begin, Mark. Welcome. And
Thank,
and
thank
thank
you.
you. Thank you for being in our life and for being here for today's session. And if for those who've been on his website already, which is a new swanky, really well done website, one of the things that you will notice that I noticed is his mission, which says every human being at full potential. And I really wanted to start from there, Mark. It sounds so simple and so wonderful, and at the same time, I think really ambitious. So when you say every human being at full potential, what does that really mean to you?
Hmm. Well, thank you so much, Amrita, for the introduction, and thank you everyone for joining today. So, every human being at full potential is indeed quite an ambitious vision, but at the same time, there's a simplicity to it because the potential already lies within all of us, right? We are born with immense potential, and it is really about expressing it, discovering it, rediscovering it, and allowing it to flow through us rather than adding, any layers, any new knowledge, understanding, and all of these things that, require effort. Actually expressing and tapping into our potential is relatively effortless. It's really the difficult part is the removing the layers, right? The conditioning and the expectations and reconnecting to our source. So in that sense, it's simple and ambitious at the same time. There's a nice little play of word with the vision. So there's every human being at their full potential, and then there's every human being at full potential. So playing with the word being and human being. Now, of course, when we look around ourselves, we probably tend to see a lot more of human doing rather than human being. So that was really what ignited the work 15 years ago, was to really take a stand to focus on the beingness of the human and what is that, and how do we bring our attention back to the being? How do we ignite that? And the assessment was kind of got born out of that, and we can speak about more about it a little bit later, but that's essentially the vision. And I feel like no matter what problem that we have in the world, we can resolve it the more that we access our collective potential, right? Our creativity. Take wars, for example, right? We see wars, right? There's a lot of fear there. And that is us at a lower level of our potential. And when we rise in our potential, we operate from a place of abundance, a place of service. And when we're in that place of collaboration and service and abundance, there is no need to be in battle anymore. There is no need to fight. There is no need for wars anymore. So even things as big as, wars, I firmly believe that they can be solved as each individual discovers and steps more into their greatest potential.
Thank you. Thank you, Mark. And in my excitement to get started, I forgot to say the other play of words, which is Mark is the founder and his company is called, no guesses for that, Being at Full Potential. So that's the other aspect to this whole every human being at full potential as I see it. And I'm so glad that we're able to collaborate and bring this work together and support this rising of consciousness together. The other thing that Mark says a lot that has stayed with me and is one of, I think, that phrase that I heard him say first, and I have adopted it into my vocabulary liberally, is that when the being is alive, the doing thrives. So I'm going to invite you, Mark, to unpack that for us. What does it really mean for our being to come alive? I know you touched upon it a little bit, but how does that translate into everyday things in the way we show up, the way we perform, relate, and just, engage in this beautiful world?
Mm-hmm. I just spent 5 days with my niece, 8-year-old niece, who really embodies the full beingness. And when I look at her, I see somebody who is unafraid to express herself, who doesn't, who's unafraid to try out new things, and who is pretty, aware of her talents and her gifts. And just playing with her, and I love playing with her. One of the things that I notice is that the more that I acknowledge her for this, very natural creativity, and acknowledge her for gifts like writing and imagination. She comes up with all these like wonderful stories, and just acknowledging her and saying, "Wow, that is so, amazing that you can, come up with these ideas, and you're so creative, and I love the way you write and your drawings." And I just arrived home, and she sent me a picture of the beginning of a little storybook that she wrote. And there was no plan for that. It was really just kind of that sense of somebody sees something in me, and it's unleashing my ability to go and create something. And that for me is the doing, right? It's when we put into motion our potential, our creative abilities, and we create something. And it happens the more we shine light on that beautiful essence, right? On the soul and the spirit of that person, and just make somebody feel seen. And so again, it goes back to the simplicity of it, right? It's very ambitious, but at the same time, there's this beautiful simplicity of seeing people for who they are, seeing their essence, seeing their talent, seeing their gifts, acknowledging it. And that is often all that is needed to put something into action. And it's the same thing in companies and organizations, right? If we just acknowledge people based on what they deliver, a project that has been delivered, that's one thing. But if we acknowledge them for the way they listened in a meeting, or the way they were able to handle, a very tricky or a conflict situation, and turn that around, and we put the light on that, and on the attitude, the way they showed up, the beingness that they had in that moment, that is what we're reinforcing. And that is what will invite people to do more of that, right? So the simple idea of what we focus on expands, right? If we focus on the doing and the performance, then that is the mindset that we will continue to expand. If we focus on the being, then we're going to expand that, and it will automatically lead to, incredible creativity, output, performance, right? So we also speak about peak experience leading to peak performance. It's another way of expressing it. So again, it goes back to the simplicity of it, simply seeing each other for our natural talents and gifts.
Yeah. I'll take the liberty, Mark, to share a side story. Is that I love listening to Mark's stories with his little niece because his little niece is also his self-appointed boss. And just as you were sharing, I was saying that, wow, it would be like so fabulous if we could just, acknowledge our boss at work, if you're in an organizational context, just the way, and see what happens when. And unfortunately, what we see within organizations and with all the leaders that we end up working with is that the emphasis is so much on the doing that we miss shining that light on that being. And then we wonder really what's really happening in organizations today and or even in families, depending which system we're looking at. We're just not shining the light on what exists, what Mark also calls as below the waterline. And if you were to go to your report, I'm sure each one of you have seen that really amazing blue picture of the human potential iceberg. And it has written there that we work with you below the waterline so that you can show up above the waterline. And they're both so interrelated to each other. So again, I ask Mark to share a bit about this aspect below the waterline and why it's so significant in our lives and in how we show up in the world. And what does it really mean to access that deeper dimension if we have to unlock human potential in ourselves first and then in others?
Mm. Yeah, I can share a little bit of a personal story here. Um, I especially when I was still working in a corporate environment, I was often told that I needed to improve my leadership, and things that were, that I was told that I needed to work on was be more assertive, speak out more, share your thoughts. We need to stand out in our vision. We need to make ourselves more visible. And it never felt completely right. And every time I would try, it would feel uncomfortable and it wouldn't really have the desired impact. But this was the above the surface type of thing, the behavior, the personality. They wanted everyone to be sort of assertive and outgoing and extrovert. Um, and so, there wasn't there was a whole part of myself that I was blocking off, that I didn't really have a good sense of what that was. And I was also told that I was too sensitive, right? Don't be so sensitive was something that I heard a lot while I was growing up. And when I started to work on myself and work with a coach, I started to look at these things very differently. And I realized, and this is sort of the beneath the surface, the being, the who I am, the essence of who I am, is that, there is so much beauty in being sensitive and being able to sense into emotions and energies. But if we don't know how to channel it, and it can be quite debilitating, even somewhat destructive. Also, everything that I was told was you have to be a very fast, quick thinker. And, you need to have very logical, rational way of making your argument. And everything had to be data centric. And that was, the way that I thought leaders show up. And there was no space for intuition, for sensing, for feeling. And as I would go on my journey, I realized that actually these two things, it's not either or. They actually
Yeah.
can work very strongly together. But we have to exercise that muscle. We have to get back in touch with that intuitive muscle. And so that really opened up this journey for me of seeing myself in more wholeness. And that was all the beneath the waterline type of work. And the more that I started to to see that in myself and see those as gifts, the easier it became for me to channel it and to take a stand for it and to actually for it to become, a really important part of how I lead and how I show up. And in turn also allow other people to show up in their uniqueness, right? And to bring their inner gifts also to light in more authentic ways.
Mhm.
Um, but cracking that box of this is how you're supposed to be as a leader in this organization was, yeah, it took quite some time. It was quite a journey. So that's why maybe I'm so passionate about everything that lies beneath the waterline and why it's also such an important part of the framework that we use.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing that and that sharing that story as well, Mark, because what what I love about it is that it's not an either or kind of situation. It's not that above the waterline is not important, but it's how do you show up above the waterline that matters the most. And I think that we've gone as organizations and as individuals from not looking beneath the waterline and almost turning a blind eye to it and focusing so much on above the waterline that we have forgotten uh, really what lies below that waterline. And therefore, the work that you do and we do together is really that journey back, if I may say so, to source all over again and access that below the waterline once again so that the two can really become one. And that's, just to share that what I find when Mark and I have known each other for many, many years, like maybe 10 or 12 years now, but really what attracted me to his work was one is that there were so many assessments that I was exposed to when I worked in organizations and when I coached within the organizational context. And I felt that all of these assessments, of course, they provided that sense of mirror in some form, but it just assumed that everybody would fit into either 6 or 9 or 12, as the case may be, or four different kind of boxes. And I recall also that there was a time when we were talking about this with a leader from an organization, and she said the only time you're really in a box is when you're dead. And that really reaffirmed the piece about these assessments and boxing people in. And what I loved about Mark's work is that yes, it is an assessment, but it doesn't box you into any aspect. It assumes that all of us have potential. And in fact, the beauty or the paradox of it all is that all of us, in essence, are exactly the same. There's absolutely no difference between us in essence. And yet we show up above the waterline very differently. And that uniqueness to our personality is quite yummy, I would say, and interesting in terms of how we show up. But at the core, we're all the same. Then what is that difference in the way that we show up? Why is there a difference? And I found that this um, tool that Mark created so many years ago points or lights that path to say that, even though we are the same, each one of us express our potential very differently. So appreciating the sameness and yet keeping room for that uniqueness to come alive. So I'm just going to invite Mark to share a little bit more about that piece about this
Mm,
below the waterline, these different unique qualities, and yet the sameness that exists
mm.
within each one of us.
Yeah, I've spoken about this quite some times that when we created the framework, so this house framework, the question that we had in the back of our minds was, what is the yearning of the soul? So what qualities um, represent that yearning? And it led to this huge kind of brainstorm and then a clustering, and then eventually it came together as a house with a foundation and three pillars, etc. And what I realize is that the thing that unites us as human beings are exactly these qualities, these 23 qualities. And they unite us because we all yearn for a sense of purpose, meaning, fulfillment. We all want to be able to contribute our talents and gifts into the world. And that is the element that unites us as human beings. And I've seen that consistently. This work has traveled all corners of the world. And no matter how different we are on the surface from our cultural backgrounds, our education, our conditioning, all of these things, when we introduce the four states, the 23 dimensions, and we start sensing and relating to them, it opens the same doors within individuals. And it's just always so beautiful to see that. And at the same time, there's so much that is unique in who we are, right? And I spoke about, right, our cultural backgrounds, our religious beliefs, our personality, the way that we have been brought up, our personality, so many things that make us unique as well. And I think it's the coming together that is really beautiful. There's so many tools that focus more on what makes us unique, and that's perfect. And we need those tools, but we also need tools that help us reconnect to that common human layer that unites us. And that's really what we try to build with the Human Potential House and being at full potential.
Thank you. So the house is not the conventional assessment, and it doesn't feel like that assessment at all. And now you and everyone else understands why. And I'll share one more little story before we step into that coaching conversation with Sai, where we'll bring this house really alive. Is that, like I said, Mark and I have been friends for a long time, but when I saw, and I had this aversion for assessments, and then when I experienced this myself and I saw this house and its 23 dimensions, I have been a student of the Bhagavad Gita for the last so many years, maybe like 20 odd years for sure, if not more. And these 23 dimensions that Mark, way away in Switzerland, not having any knowledge, at least I think, of the Bhagavad Gita then, and me sitting here in India, it was the exact same qualities that are mentioned in the 17th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. And I said, oh, there's no way that we can't be doing this work together. It's identical. And that's really when you say the yearning of the soul, it fits in so beautifully to this conversation. So that's really how our paths converged even further. And here we are together once again. So I can keep talking
Wow.
about this, the joy
Yeah.
that it has brought me and
Yeah.
everyone else as we bring this work of soulful organizations alive. I also see that there are questions that are already coming into the chat box, so it's ignited some curiosity. And I wanted to say that we will have time for questions. We will come to that. But let's uh, get into the doing from a space of being and step into like a coaching conversation, which Sai has so beautifully volunteered to be part of. And Mark already has her report. So we will step into that piece, and I'm going to invite Mark and Sai in to take center stage. And let's see what wants to happen as they both bring the Human Potential House alive. So over to the two of you, and I'll come back towards the end.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Amrita. Thank you. Lovely. Thank you so much, Sai, for volunteering and stepping forward for this little practice. And we haven't prepared. This is going to be fully flowing, and no idea where it's going to go, and that is also very much the beauty of it. So yeah, I'll just invite everyone to. I think everyone is already on mute, but just to sit back and enjoy the session, and maybe take note of anything that you observe of how it's unfolding, and of course any questions that you might have, and we'll have time to look at those towards the end. So given we've spoken a lot about the being and the doing, Sai, I was wondering if you would be okay if we start with just a very brief grounding, just to get us settled in before we start looking at the report. Lovely. Yeah, so let's take a few deep breaths together. Feel your feet connected to Mother Earth. Just allow ourselves to settle, to become present, to put aside anything that we've been busy with earlier today or anything else that we have planned for this evening. And as we become present in this moment, let's just sense into that place of our inner being, our spirit, our soul, the essence of who we are. And just see what is alive within you, within us right now. Maybe there are some sensations, some words that are emerging, some images, some feelings. Just notice. Notice what gets expressed when you tune into you at your full potential. Now bring your attention also to the report, and to the experience of the assessment. And I know, Sai, that you've had a chance to read the report already. And just check in with yourself if there's anything about the report that stood out that you would like to start our conversation with today. Just take a few moments to be present with that. Maybe it came to you when you were answering the questions. Maybe it came to you when you scanned the report for the first time. Maybe it came to you when you were reading it in more detail. Just pay attention to something that made you curious, something that stood out. And when you're ready, we can gently come back and we can start our session. So I have the report here. If you like, I can bring it up, but maybe you can just share just whatever came up for you in this little grounding, anything that may have caught your attention when you looked at the report first, without having to make sense of it. Just share whatever is present for you.
Yeah, sure. I think I went over it very quickly just once last week. But then today I came to it just before I could log in. And I think what really caught my attention was the whole yellow bar around. Um, of course, a lot of my attention also went to a lot of the greens and what it said about, potential being well expressed and, all of that. And then I also went to the yellow bar, which was the personal development piece. And there were a few boxes or parts of the house that were highlighted. And I just wondered if that could be a place to just go to
Of
and
course. Yeah.
discuss. And I felt very aligned in reading the report in many ways. And then I went to the last sheet where it talked about, the whole piece on mental and awareness and bliss,
Mhm.
that those colors and those. And And as I was reading that, I really felt very resonant with it, Mark, because I just felt that I've really been feeling that movement within me for about a year or two now, around the slow moving from the mental to the awareness piece in the way the report talks about it. Um, and and I think I'm just ambling along with it with no need to do something about it, and I've just left it there and enjoying that, because that itself is not the usual way at all for me to amble along with something, but I've just allowed it to just be there, and I'm just aware of those movements within me, I think that's pretty much the same movement that would have led me to even replying to the email and saying, oh, okay, let's see where this goes. So I think it's very much, I mean, I'm talking about it like it's in the background, but it's not in the background. It's very much in the foreground, this whole movement that's happening inside of me. And I'm beginning to see so many shifts in how I relate to both myself and also, what I see in the world. So yeah. So that's my first response.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So lovely. And I love how you connected it to this impulse to say yes to this invitation, the shift from the reason-based to the awareness-based maturity, consciousness. And there's something about letting go, trusting the process, not needing to have all the answers. I know in some of our email exchanges, you were asking, is there anything I need to prepare, any questions? And I said, no, let's just see where it goes. And you seemed also very okay with that, right? But so it's very nice how you speak about this being a movement, and an inner growth process and movement there. So let's keep that sort of in the background as we maybe look at some of the dimensions of the house. So I think that's really nice context. I'll just bring up the report so everyone else can see what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Just give me 1 second. Okay. So this is the personal maturity index. So as you were speaking about this reason-based consciousness and moving into the wisdom-based consciousness, there's a finding here that seemed to have spoken to you. So we can look at that maybe a little bit more afterwards. But maybe we start with the house. And it's a very colorful house. So we see actually a whole full range of colors, right? So there's the red, which is labeled as unexpressed. There's some yellow, underexpressed, green, well expressed, and purple, highly expressed or fully expressed. And this goes back to what we were talking about before, right? That these are inherent human qualities that we all have access to. So these are not things that we need to acquire. These are not skills that we need to learn. These are innate qualities that make us human. And it's just a matter of to what extent are we expressing them at a given point in time. And like Amrita was saying, it can be very dynamic. So 1 year, you'll take the test, there'll be a certain context and life situation that you're in, and you're going to have a certain result, and you then try to find the story in those results. And then the next year, the context changes, you have changed, the results present themselves differently, and there's a new story. So the story is constantly evolving, right? As we evolve, our story and how we story ourselves evolves as well. So the idea today is to try and find the story in the house, and it's not me as sort of the expert of the model who's going to tell you what the story is. It's more you who are going to discover it for yourself, and I'll support you in that process. So even though these are kind of put into boxes, they are not separate things, right? They are all interconnected, and when we work on one, it has impact on the others. So they're very intertwined and flowing together. They all have very clear definitions. So it's also important that when we look at it, that we anchor it in the definition as well. So we'll do that. And, I just would ask you, Sai, where would you like to start? Which aspect of the house do you feel most curious about? Do you feel most drawn to?
I think I feel most drawn to harmony and humility.
Okay. Can you say a bit more about that?
I didn't go and read the definition of each of these, and I think I might, and I would love to hear a little more about uh, how you see how is harmony and humility understood, and
Mhm.
I want to contextualize it to who I am and where I am, just to make sense of it.
Okay, let's do that. Let's have a look together. So all the definitions are here. So harmony, and they're both under being in service, right? So they're both in this state of being in service. So harmony is the ability to create sufficient space for reflection and self-care. And humility is accepting that our thoughts and the way we show up or we choose to respond to a situation is the only thing within our control. So the way that we choose to respond is the only thing actually within our control. That's how we define humility.
Yeah,
And harmony is creating space for reflection and self-care.
yeah, yeah. I um I think I'm able to at this moment um cognitively, psychologically able to connect with harmony and humility in the way it's defined here. And my question is, how do I allow it to drop into a deeper place? These two, how do I allow it to drop, yeah, into a deeper place? I get what this is, and I
Mm-hmm.
also get so many situations that just, moving in front of my eyes in terms of where I can see perhaps a lack of harmony and humility. And so I get it. And that's what I meant when I say I get it psychologically, cognitively. I understand where it is for me. How do I, yeah, how do I take it? Um, yeah.
I'm wondering, do you see this as the same or part of the same movement that you spoke about before, the reason-based consciousness to the awareness-based consciousness? Going from sort of psychologically understanding or cognitively understanding something to really dropping into it and living into it, if you like.
I'm not really able to make that connection, Mark.
Okay.
Uh, yeah. Because I also am just going for a moment to look at the bold line, which is running a business in service of the greater good.
Mhm.
I feel I really get that. And I just feel many aspects of that are embodied in me in many, many ways. So I really see that I'm already journeying in this space. So I'm not fully able to see the connection. So, yeah.
Mhm. Okay. So, you're asking me sort of how do you drop deeper into harmony and humility?
Yeah.
Um, I know how I do it for myself. I don't know how it looks for you.
Yeah.
So if you don't mind, me just kind of playing that question back to you and maybe asking you if you can think of specific moments where you have felt deeply immersed in reflection and self-care, for example, or where you have, come across sort of a moment of choice making where you had to realize that, you had to let go of what other people, what you could control about other people and really just focus on how can I just be congruent with myself, let go of wanting to change somebody and realizing that you can't change it, that you really remain close to your own thoughts and feelings and choices. Can you think
Yes,
of anything concrete?
yeah, sure. I can think of a situation that I continue to hold, and I have been holding now for a couple of years, of some really deep betrayals in the family, which have impacted me so much. And I feel I have been very much in a reflective space. And I think doing my best to live in alignment with how humility is talked about here, which is it's just me and what I can do. And I am going to be in choice here around the mood
Mhm.
that I'm going to step into with these individuals. And how is it that I can be committed to keeping myself in peace while
Mhm.
continuing to stay connected with these individuals because they're close and that I can just walk and so I really feel I've been walking with this and taking many steps towards keeping connection, but also keeping dignity for
Mm.
them and for myself. So yeah, I think that's the most closest situation that comes to my mind because I continue to walk with it and hold it even today.
Mm. Such a wonderful example. Yeah, really wonderful example.
Yeah,
And yeah, I'm sort of seeing a bit or feeling into a bit of a connection between the two, actually, that being in choice and what you said about how the mood that you step into,
yeah,
um, and that gives a certain sense of peace.
mm,
And that peace is maybe a little bit similar to harmony, right? Like when you experience that peace, you're also creating that space for yourself. Um,
yeah.
uh, so there's actually it seems like quite a nice connection between humility and creating that space for reflection, self-care.
Mm, mm. And I think what I've really been uh, my sense is I'm really attending to this piece in many, many tiny ways
Mhm.
that I have worked out, including, relational scaffolding, who are always present for me, spaces where I can just take something and just lay it there and allow it to be taken care of and me to be taken care of along with it. So I really think there are many pieces that I feel, yeah, even as I'm talking about it now, my sense is I'm attending to this,
Mm.
you know, to the best of just where I am and what I know how to do at this moment.
Mm.
Uh, and um, and I also, I'm just thinking aloud now that I think with regards to humility, what I've also been doing is, telling this family member that this is the best that is possible for me now.
Mm.
I mean, this is the best that is
Mm.
possible. And yeah,
Mm.
and not regurgitating things which are not needed. Because I really
Mm.
think it allows some peace and calm and dignity for both sides. But very much tending to uh, my heart
Mm.
and my feelings around, the difficulty that has got caused.
Mm.
So yeah, as I'm talking to you, I feel I am attending to this, and I'm just curious. Um, I'm curious what more, and yeah, and I'm also okay to just walk with a question.
Yeah. No, it's really wonderful. And what I feel is a deep respect for for who you are, for who you're becoming, and in some way also a deep respect for the other individual, that they are on their own path and you're respecting, that they are also doing the best that they can.
Yeah.
And I feel like that is what allows that connection to still stay alive.
Yeah.
So it's a very beautiful example you're sharing, and a lot of great awareness.
Yeah.
And I wonder, like, do you feel there is an edge for you to expand this sort of beyond that particular family situation, other aspects of your life, perhaps? Um,
Hmm. My own sense is, Mark, that I think I really feel I'm living into this already in other
mm,
spaces of life. I think the hardest, honestly, is to execute any of this in the deeply personal. Yeah. So I really feel I am in the test actually with this situation because it is, with individuals that, are close and whom one leans on and one has always regarded. So I really feel this is the test. This is the ground
mm,
that I'm walking on. I feel in other spaces in life, my own sense is I'm okay
mm,
with these two pieces of harmony and humility. However, as you were speaking, I think what came up for me as in looking at these two and the situation that I spoke about is the red box of gratitude.
mhm,
And I have to say, I was really shocked when I saw the red box of gratitude.
mhm,
Um, uh, and then I went and read gratitude. I managed to do that before the call. And then I said,
mhm,
seeing good in challenging situations. That's the definition of gratitude. Yeah.
mhm,
And I thought that, yeah, that's a place I can do better in. And now I'm just seeing gratitude and harmony and humility all like, dots, that are joining these three. And I
mhm,
think there is potential there to expand and to be more realized with gratitude in the way it is talked about here.
mhm, mhm. Yeah, it's nice that you're starting to see the interconnection, right? That's the story that emerges through this type of process.
Yeah.
Um, if you would like to share a little bit more about uh, this definition and how you relate to it, right? Seeing goodness even in challenging situations, even in challenging situations.
I'll just continue sharing about this situation that I'm talking
Yeah.
about. You know, the
Mhm,
I think uh, it has been hard for me to go by, you know, like in the Bhagavad Gita, we very much talk about, whatever happens, happens for good. There is that, core message there. Uh,
mhm,
but I think when this sort of situation happened in the family, I could find no angle of understanding that statement at all because I couldn't understand at all what is the good, that could come out of such a difficult situation. So I really feel when I read this statement, seeing the goodness in challenging situations, I said, yeah, I think I find that really difficult to do.
mhm,
Um, and this situation too was exactly like that. And I just feel I am now, after a few years of, 2 or 3 years of it, I'm beginning to feel more. Um, I think I'm just at the edge of beginning to understand this.
mhm,
Yeah, because I see my effort, I see the other individual's effort. And so I'm seeing that. yeah, there is some good that's coming out of it. There is
Mm,
potential for the relationship to slowly build trust again. Even though I'm not in a hurry, I'm not running to some finishing line with it. I'm just
mm,
allowing myself to be. So yeah, I do feel that there is potential for me to really work a little more with this whole gratitude piece and bringing myself to see this goodness a little sooner than I
mm,
currently am able to do.
mhm, mm.
Uh, yeah,
You know what comes up for me when I listen to this is that it's emergent, right? Goodness in challenging situations is something that is emergent. It's not obvious right from the beginning, especially when we're in a really difficult context, difficult situation.
yeah,
And so seeing it from the beginning is pretty much, impossible, or at least very, very difficult. But trusting that goodness will emerge even through challenging situations is slightly different. Um, and that is something, again, going back to humility, that is what a choice that we can make, is that we don't know it, we can't see it yet, but we have this sort of deep trust that there
yeah,
is something here that is emerging that we don't understand yet, that we don't see it yet. And to choose to approach, the situation from that angle, that is something that is within our control to a certain extent, right? Or to a large extent.
yeah, yeah. Yeah. And I think as we're speaking about it, I just see again such a link also to openness to new possibility and to
Mhm.
trust versus control. Yeah, I'm just sort of
Mm.
finding myself extending the line and the dots to go there. And I can see
Mhm.
how it's also connected that, I think when we are unable to fully manage challenging situations, it is a matter of trust versus control. Yeah,
Mm.
and to have structure and to just know, to just know is just so
Mm.
comfortable versus just saying, I'm just going to breathe into this and see what is going to emerge, and
Mm.
uh, and let's see. Yeah, and I do feel that's been an edge for a long time for me, and I do feel I've really moved. I'm very satisfied with how I've moved, with that edge, learning to be more trusting. And I think even in this current situation I'm talking about, I think I'm doing that. And yet not forcing myself, to go beyond what's comfortable for me. And in all honesty, to be able to say that to the other person. Uh, and I really see that capacity to say it the way it is with care as a great way to afford myself and the other dignity. So I really feel, yeah, I can see the connection to open possibilities and trust versus control and what that means.
Mm.
Yeah.
Wonderful. So beautiful. So, so beautiful. Yeah. Thank you, Sai. And I feel like the house is doing its job. It's showing us, you know, the way and the insights are emerging. And, I didn't mention this before, but what happens when we start working with the house is that it stops being a house and it starts to become feeling like home, like coming home to who we are. The more we work with it, the more we engage with it, the more we find our story in it, it starts to feel like we are coming home to who we are, right? Coming home to our potential, and
Yeah.
and I can sense that that is also what's emerging here. And
Yeah.
I'm just wondering, as we sort of start to close this session for today, if there's anything that is emerging for you now, that doesn't have to be, but if there is something that is emerging in terms of the doing aspect, right? Is there something that you feel like, wow, this insight is actually inviting me to uh, uh, do something a little bit differently in my life?
Um, I think what the insight is inviting me to do is to just be,
Mhm.
is to just be and allow this observation of the movement within and allowing the space for myself. And I see that deeply linked to the reflection, self care, humility bit, because I think it takes something to just, I think it takes something to just amble along, not knowing
Mhm.
necessarily what is going to come on that path and what you're going to find at the end of it. And, and to allow myself to just increasingly say, let's see,
Mm.
let's see.
Wow.
And
That's a wonderful
that's,
takeaway, actually. It's a
I
very
think that's the doing.
specific,
Yeah,
concrete thing. Yeah.
let's
To
see.
try that on more,
Yeah,
let's see,
um, yeah,
let's see what emerges.
yeah,
I love that.
yeah.
Wow. So is there anything else that you would
Mm,
like to ask or share before we close off for this particular exercise or session?
um, just that I'm also just glad to celebrate myself and the different green and purple pieces on this report, and to know that I'm not, beyond any of that, that I'm happy to celebrate myself and the work
Mm.
that I'm doing to walk the path. And
Mhm.
yeah, so I celebrate myself.
Yeah, wonderful. Wonderful. I celebrate you as well, Sai. Celebrate you for, the beautiful opening and vulnerability and sharing, very, very authentic, very genuine, very insightful. I really believe that all of us have benefited from you sharing your story today. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
So yeah, let's close off for now,
Yeah.
and I'll invite Amrita back.
Thank you so much. Thank you both, Mark and Sai. And Sai, I hope you're also seeing how all of us with our emoticons are celebrating you and your life and everything that you shared with us today.
Thank you.
Yeah, great. So before we transition to really closing today's session, I know that there definitely is one question for sure from Subish, who right in the beginning said, "Can I ask a question?" So I'm just going to invite you in directly to ask your question in your own voice. And we'll take it from there. If there's anything else that has stirred for others, and there's something that you want to ask or share, um, because this session, of course, although it was with Sai, it's really you. I'm sure each one of you saw that it was less of an assessment, less about the score, less about the diagnostic, and more about the conversation. And like we share very often in the this kind of coaching that we do, what happens for one happens for all. And so if I'm sure you've gleaned into your own self through this conversation. So I'm going to invite Subishan first, and then we can move along.
Sure, thanks, Amrita. Mark and Sai, thanks. A wonderful experience. I'll actually go back to the concept around above the waterline and below the waterline. I do see a strong resonance with the iceberg model that historically or traditionally we have been using. How do you see different than the traditional iceberg model where you actually see the exhibit of the behaviors on the tip of the iceberg or above the the water level, and of course down below is basically your motives, values, which is significantly common for everybody across. The way you respond is different, and that's exactly what the tip of the iceberg is. Views on that, please.
Hmm.
I'm going to get Mark.
So
Mark, I'm just going to invite you to respond to it, of course. But if you can also just share the image of the human potential iceberg as you respond, because
yeah,
that's one of the difference, Subish, largely from how we've traditionally seen the iceberg in all uh, behavioral senses, and just to get a view first of the human potential iceberg, and then Mark, over to you.
yeah. Yeah, great. Thank you so much for the question. So with Sai, we looked at her individual report, and her individual report really focuses on the house. That is the main, the main output. There's also a professional version of the report, which I can briefly share here. So one that we use in the professional context, and also with organizations and leaders in organizations. And there we actually have an iceberg framework, which let's see if I can make this a little bit bigger. Maybe not, but you can see here there is the above the waterline. We speak about the organizational performance metrics, right? So things like getting things done, inventiveness, trustworthiness. So all of the things that we know are key drivers of an organization, of a business. And then we have the things that we looked at today with Sai, which are the 4 being attitudes, right? Sitting just underneath the waterline. And then we have a whole other layer here, the 8 being attitudes, which is also not part of the individual report, but it is part of the professional report that lie at the foundation of the iceberg. So we actually also use this key visual as a way to tell the story of how the being and the doing are interacting with each other, specifically in an organizational context.
Sure. Thanks, Mark. I do understand this. My question, I'll re-clarify, is how is it different than the traditional iceberg, the model that you're presenting or we are talking about here? How is it different than the traditional iceberg? Uh, what's the unique value proposition the model brings in or the framework brings in?
So can you remind me what you're referring to as a traditional iceberg? Is there, because I've
Basically,
seen many icebergs in the context of,
yeah,
I've
that's
seen like the iceberg, we have strategy and culture, strategy at the top and culture at the bottom. But I think you have something in mind, and I just want to make sure
yeah. Just a moment. Let me see if I can just pull out something right now. Basically, it's basically the exhibit of the behaviors that you have in the tip of the iceberg. So what I do, what exactly you're saying is that what I do, my actions, my behaviors, my responses are all visible, are all seen. That's on the tip of the iceberg. And
yeah.
what you see below the down below is my thoughts, my values, my needs. And one of the thing that um, earlier you or Amrita said is these are common. All of us have some of these values, needs, etc., being common. I see the same thing in that iceberg model, which is nothing but a recipe for well-being, is what we also call, right? So I want to understand how is this framework, the one that you're proposing, is different than the traditional iceberg model, which has behaviors and I'll try and see if I get a
Hmm.
research article around it. I'll probably email it to, I'm still on Google looking for something. I can
Okay,
email it
yeah.
to all of
I,
you.
I,
Yeah.
I would I would say that it's, it probably the main thing that's different is the language and the concepts that we choose to you know to bring to light here, right? So, the tip of the iceberg here is very deliberately looking at organizational performance metrics, right? So we're not looking so much at personality or behaviors or character traits, which could also be lying above the iceberg in a different model. In this one, we're really choosing to highlight the things that we know are really important for organizational leaders. And underneath, we bring in the concepts that we spoke about today, right? So the 4 being states, that is also based on a lot of research of what brings us alive, right? What is the yearning of the soul? What gives us meaning and purpose? Those types of things. So it's like we're just sort of fitting our model or philosophy into an iceberg model, just like other people will bring their unique way of telling a certain story, whether it be well-being or behavior and personality or culture and strategy, into the same metaphor of an iceberg. So in a way it's the same thing, and in a way it's different because we're bringing in concepts that are a little bit unique from our perspective.
Sure. Thanks, Mark.
Mark, I'm just going to step in, and I know that Ruchira as well as Sai probably want to step in as well, but I'm just claiming host and stepping in first. That's all. To Subish's question specifically, I think there are 3 things that make this model uniquely different. The first is the fact that we're bringing attention to what is below the waterline and measuring that which is below the waterline, which most other institutes, organizations, models, framework tend to demonstrate it, say, yeah, it exists, but that's it. They don't do anything about it. So one is the attention to it and the measurement of it. The second piece, the way that I see that it is different, is that it recognizes that sustainable change, sustainable shifts in behaviors is possible only when you draw attention and attend to what is below the waterline, which again is left out to figure that piece out on your own kind of piece. So it's the attention to it and then the attendance to it by making it a priority is what makes this framework and work that we do uniquely different from the rest of the frameworks and models that are brought to leadership development and organizational development. And the third piece, really, as I would say, is that there are very few, I would say, professionals who are both passionate and trained to work below the waterline and bring attention and attendance to it. And that also makes that difference. So that's really how I would respond to Savish's question, if it's helpful.
Sure, Amrita. Thank you.
One piece. Over to you, Sai, and then Ruchira.
Can I come in first because I just want to add, Amrita, to what you said.
Of course.
So, Sai, I'm sorry, but I'm just going to jump the line a little bit. I wanted to also add, Subesh, a couple of things that, in addition to what Amrita shared and the way this tool is, very unique for me, is when you talk about, especially, this is very well, it serves coaching very well, a coaching exploration. It's not prescriptive. And when you look at coaching as a developmental tool, which falls in that realm of psychometry or, that realm, a lot of the tools that are commonly available or have been used for a long time serve that need. But when you go into that deeper realm of transformational coaching or deep coaching, there is an aspect of wisdom that needs to probably support that work. And this tool really speaks to that. At least I haven't come across a tool that speaks to that aspect of evolution of the soul, not just just not the cognitive development or any of that, but really going deeper. And I feel like this tool serves that need. And thank you for that question. I think it's helped me articulate and think through some of this.
Now, Ruchira, thank you. This was useful. I'm able to connect now since you mentioned transformational coaching, I do see how this tool can add value, because most of the coaching process really tends to attract the cognitive based coaching, not really the transformational coaching, the transactional part of it. That was beautiful. Thanks for that.
Beautifully said, Ruchira, and over to you, Sai.
Nothing more to add. I think both of you said what I would have liked to say. Cool.
And I think Sai it was a beautiful opening when we did the coaching about the evolution of our, soul or our spirit, our consciousness. When she spoke about the movement, right? You use that word movement from the reason-based to the wisdom-based, and it's really a shift in our being, right? In who we are and how we choose to show up. And it comes with things like being more comfortable with the unknown, being able to respect that other people are on their own journey, that you are on your own journey, and that you can still have a good relationship with somebody. It doesn't mean that relationship needs to break. It means that you're, more comfortable saying, let's see what emerges, right? That is, we're still the same person, but we're evolving in a way where we're meeting the world in a different way. And I think that is what this tool sort of points to quite nicely, or invites people to engage with, if you like. Maybe that's a better way. It doesn't necessarily force people to go down that route, but it does invite us to engage with that evolutionary, transformational dimension of our journeys.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you all. And thank you, Subish, for generating this conversation. Because I think that ultimately it's really not about creating better structures or introducing new leadership models or frameworks or really changing any organizational process, as much as it is about creating the conditions that bring human beings alive and let them thrive within the same space, within the same structure, within the same model, and within the same situation that they may find themselves in. Let me just check in if there are any more thoughts or reflections or questions anybody would like to share or ask before we bring the session to a close.
Amrita, I just have my hand up.
Yes.
Just an extension to, the same conversation that Subesh brought up. I also see what's different like when you look at the typical iceberg, it just has, behaviors and values, beliefs and stuff like that down. It's very mota. There is nothing to de-strand the complexity of what that really means to a human being and one's life. Yeah, and I feel these pieces here, the being inspired, the being, all of those different pieces, does that beautifully, number one. Number two, I also feel it is pointing in the direction, like even if I look at where the world is today and how businesses are, there isn't enough conversation around uh, how meaningful is what you're doing to the world at large, given where we are. So this whole aspect of societal consciousness, yeah, which is of course linked to just our human consciousness, is really, yeah. So I feel there aren't enough conversations around that at all. I think organizations run from such a conversation because it simply doesn't align with all the other things that we are doing in organizations, right? And the cost and the price that is being paid, that we have thrown this question into the dustbin, right? Where is our societal consciousness? So I feel somewhere when I look at the parameters in the house, it's also going into these aspects, which the iceberg model, is not remotely attending to anything. It's very much an individual model, right? But the house has the model of me, we, and the world. Yeah, which is such an important paradigm for any leader to be holding today. Yeah, we can't just be in the me and the me all the time. So, yeah, I think that was the other piece that came to my mind.
That's very powerful. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, beautifully said, Hassan. Very nice.
Thank you. And it's invitations like these that invite conversations like this. It's the I like I said in the beginning that it's a map and a mirror, and it's really supporting us to engage in these conversations, whether it's in a space like this, whether when you take the assessment within your organizational space, but it's that invitation, and that's really also what our whole resource series has been about over these last 7 conversations that's culminated with this house today. Any other questions or any other thoughts? Yes, Laurie, come on in.
Yeah. Hi. What comes to me is that, when you also look at the house, we're looking at the inside. And so this is about the inner work and how to bring the inner work into the outer world, right? And it's the same concept or similar concepts, if you will, that resonate through deep coaching is trusting, right? Trusting, and then celebrating. I wrote down a few words: choice, being willing to look through the lens of what is emerging. And then lastly, I wrote down coming home to who we are. So, it's inside, it's like opening the door up of the house and walking in and seeing, what floor are we on? Or where should I, where do I need to like give a little massage over here or over there? That's what comes to me through this. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, I think it's just like a practical way of making the invisible visible.
Yeah.
And beginning that journey, not telling us who we should become, but really helping us see more clearly of who we already are, what may be limiting us and what's waiting to be fully expressed.
Amrita, I'd like to add something to that. I think
Absolutely.
sorry, my camera is not on today. But in addition to the house that we've, everybody has spoken about, what really resonates with me are, a few things which have been, not covered in any of the assessments. For example, the intensity that I have, the passion that I have for the work I do, right? The life that I live. And what are my inner strengths, and what is support is available for me to realize my inner strengths. So all those kind of things, the maturity index, that is one of the most beautiful things about this, at least for me, is this. Am I saying something? Am I doing what I'm saying? Are they aligned? What is my, if I say something, am I doing, am I not doing? To what capacity? Where is my growth area? Working on my mindsets, and kind of, so seeing those kind of things, harnessing my mindset, what is my intuition, working on those. I don't think any of these other assessments do that. And I think the also other thing beautiful about this assessment is that it's not prescriptive at all. It doesn't tell you that this is who you are. This is just opens up a door for conversation, and you can take it any way you want. You may agree, okay, you may disagree also, okay. And I think that's the whole beauty about this assessment from my perspective.
Thank you. Thank you for
Thank you,
sharing
Nidhi.
that.
Yeah, there are
And-
indeed lots of other findings in the report that we could go to. It's quite vast, but we deliberately tried to go deep rather than broad. So depth versus breadth, but there's plenty to look at in future sessions. You can easily engage with a client on multiple coaching sessions and cover different aspects of the report. And it's just what happens is a more and more holistic story then starts to emerge, right? There was already something that was emerging today, but the more other findings will just further complement that as well for the client. So yeah, I think this is a good place for us to close today.
Yeah,
I want to say a big
absolutely.
thank you, everyone, for joining again, and especially Sai for, the wonderful exchange that we had. I really enjoyed it. And of course, Amrita for, yeah, just your amazing leadership in setting all this up and being such a wonderful champion of being at full potential. And, all of you, Ruchira and Nidhi and Kirti and Priyanka and, all Supra, all of us from the collective, who are here today, and sharing your experiences. It's very meaningful for me too. So thank you.
Great. Thank you. Perfect place for us to bring it to a close. I just want to share one last piece, two pieces actually. So just stay tuned. I'll just go maybe 1 minute above our scheduled time. And that, this is like we were sharing in the beginning, the end of what we call season one of our resource sessions. And we will be back with a second season where we want to move really matters into exploring more deeply about what happens when we actually bring this work alive within the organizational context, and how do organizations actually come alive, and what changes in leaderships and relationships and cultures and stories around what happens when it is experienced. And that's going to be season 2, so stay tuned. And also, like I was sharing with Sai before we got on to this session, it just so also happens that, of course, like Mark was sharing, that many of us from the Soulful Organization Collective, in fact, all of us present here today, but it's also the piece around this work that Mark has created and bringing to the world over the last 15 years. He also teaches this through a human potential coach certification, which begins in October. And I will share the details with those who are keen to understand more about it. But really, just thank you so much for all of you who chose to join and stay here. To Sai, who stepped in so fully and beautifully. And of course, to Mark for sharing not just the human potential house with us, but the deeper philosophy from which it has emerged, and just being such an amazing and beautiful partner as we walk this path together. Thank you all, and stay tuned for season 2. We will be back. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.